Hello, I'm Jacob and this is the Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. I'm out here crafting in the bush with our guard dog Dixie and our goofy little goats. We're having a great time and I thought that this would be a wonderful time to share with you my feelings on the Ultimate Survival Tips MSK1. Now, what we're going to do in this video is a little bit different. We're going to look at Dave's claims on this knife, how he advertised it, and we are going to review it based on those claims, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about the knife, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun along the way, so stay tuned. Now, Dave at Ultimate Survival Tips is a YouTuber much like myself, and much like myself, he's tested many knives and seen some problems with all of them. The MSK1 is his idea of not only a survival knife, but of a one-tool option. That is to say, an apocalyptic survival knife where it's possible that the only thing on the planet you can trust your life with is this knife. That's setting the bar really high, and what we're going to do is we're going to look and see if what he advertises as a one-tool option is on the money and if he hit his mark.
Things went really bad in the world. And you could only have one knife for the rest of your life. Which knife would you choose? As the founder of Ultimate Survival Tips, I get asked that question all the time.
And a rugged knife built for tough jobs with the finesse of a fine carving tool.
So, Dave knows what he's looking for in a one-tool option. A tool that can do large tasks and chopping, but also the smaller tasks necessary when this is the only tool that you've got.
The center-aligned clip point is exceptional for piercing, detailed tip carving, or precision drilling. We accomplish this by raising the blade spine, which effectively shifts the center of gravity forward just enough to make the MSK1 an incredible chopper, while the jimped thumb ramp increases knife control and directs thumb pressure toward the edge, making every cut precise and efficient. For more intricate cutting and carving tasks, the oversized choil allows you to safely grip the knife a fraction of an inch from the blade for incredible control.
Rock smash! So Dave talked about finesse and fine tasks a lot. Carving, drilling holes, all of those things. I've used this knife for some moderate bush crafting, mostly feather sticks, and even preparing a little bit of today's meal. This knife can do fine tasks, but what I want you to do is think about the footage that you just saw of him doing fine tasks, and then of me. This is not a carver. This is not a really nice finesse tool like you would see in something that you really do carving with. And it's got some good features for fine work, and it's also got some pretty big issues. We're going to go into that later. Let's go straight into what he has to say about chopping and how well this knife chops.
This is the MSK1. It's a great chopper. I was at Sigma 3 Survival School, got the first prototype. This is Proto 4. And within 2 days, I just retired my hatchet. So we've got a really nice chopping action. One thing that I would not take would be an axe. And the reason I wouldn't take an axe is, one, because the MSK1 was actually designed to do quite a good job at chopping. And two, as far as processing wood with a larger tool like this, when you're tired, hungry, cold, and just maybe not in a good mental state, using an axe could actually be a liability. So I actually would not take an axe.
So what you just heard Dave say is that not only would he replace an axe or not need an axe while using this knife, which everybody's style is a little bit different. Some people chop less, some people chop more. But on the opening page of the Kickstarter, it says chops like a hatchet. And Dave, as the designer and YouTube force behind this, said that he no longer needed a hatchet not only in a survival class, but in a lone, in a homesteading, prepping, ultimate emergency scenario, he would choose this over an axe. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare it to a hatchet. It says it chops like a hatchet. He actually said he'd replace a full-sized axe with it. The hatchet that we have here today is the Council Tool Hudson Bay Belt Axe and their Velvet Cut line. This is a very, very small hatchet. It's a 1 1/4 pound head. And the reason that I've chosen this axe to use to demonstrate for you guys is this is probably the smallest axe that I would find useful for bushcraft. And it's incredibly useful. I love taking it out to get fat wood and to do stuff with it. But for bushcraft, this is the smallest axe that I would find to be useful, and it actually probably would work just as well as a carving axe as it does for a bushcrafting axe. But in my opinion, not as a survival axe. As a survival axe, an actual axe, not a hatchet, you're looking at building shelters, chopping through larger sections of wood. You're looking at trying to thrive with nothing, which means building a hard shelter. And he's advertising that this knife is good for that. Now, we're going to see how this MSK1 compares to this Council Tool hatchet for chopping. And keep in mind, this is not only a small hatchet, but it's nothing close to an axe. So, we're going to give this tree a little bit of hacks. We'll say, we'll give this tree a solid 6 chops, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. That's what we got there. And 6 chops. Weren't the perfect chops, but whatever. Now, what are we going to get with 6 chops out of the Ultimate Survival Knife, Ultimate Survival Tips MSK1? 1. Geez. 2, 3, 4, 5. Quite simply, you saw me mess up right there a little bit. The reason is it is not a chopping tool. Not only did I get incredible vibration to my hands because the scales, although they're comfortable and well shaped for smaller work, pretty well, they're terrible for chopping, just destroyed the hand. And it does not have the weight distribution or length to be an effective chopper. Not at all. This not only doesn't chop like a hatchet, it doesn't even chop like a chopping knife. This little Council tool here is an absolute sweetheart, but definitely not a brute. My 6 hits to this tree here, though, were effective, and on a tree that's this size, this is soft pine, so this is probably the easiest stuff on the planet to chop with. I could certainly fairly easily get through this tree and do great work with this little tiny hatchet. If we were to talk about a hardwood tree or an actual stressful situation, that wouldn't be so much the case, which is okay. That's not really what this axe is designed for. It's kind of like a trapper's friend or something. On the contrary, this is what you see with the MSK1. Now, this is not a controlled environment. I'm not here to get out the 2x4s and try and show you exactly what's going on. But this knife is almost a pound. That puts it in the weight category of a BK9 from Becker or an Essie Hunglis 2. This is not a chopping knife. There is nothing about this knife that lends it to chopping whatsoever. And that is very, very important for a few reasons that we're going to get to later. Right now, let's go into the next things that he advertises about this blade.
I remember when I was a kid and I got my first survival knife with a hollow handle and a survival kit inside. I felt like Rambo, even though the knife was terrible and the survival kit was mostly a gimmick. So my goal was to develop the first truly useful handle survival kit, including hard-to-improvise items that could actually help you stay alive in a survival situation. To do this, I worked with the team at Wazoo Survival Gear to develop a micro-survival kit for the MSK1 that includes items for fire starting, water collection and purification, fishing, traps and snares, navigation, repairing gear, and first aid.
So, the hollow handle. The survival kit on the inside from Wazoo Survival. Absolutely 2 thumbs up. It's great. These large slotted screws are easy to back out. The kit on the inside is legit. The bow drill divot is great. There are things about this knife that are revolutionary and are awesome. I really don't like the ferro rod notch. Really at all, but it does work. It just doesn't work as well for me as other stuff. But what it allows them to do also is to keep all of these edges nice and tumbled and rounded. That's solid. That's smart. I totally get it. So when it comes to some of his innovations with the sheath as well, 2 thumbs up, man. I mean, really, it's really great. Guys, I want to wrap this up. There are a few things that I was going to talk to you more about later, as I mentioned. We're going to start with the finesse work. Now, this edge is quite thick, and it has to be, comparative to a lot of other knives. You'll see this SEPR4 here has a thinner edge on it. And some people might say, well, that's a bushcraft knife. That's not a survival knife. It doesn't need such a thick edge. But then when you look at the Super Kook here, it has an even thinner edge. Takes many, many, many times the amount of force, impact, shock, lateral stress, everything. It's held together great. The problem is the thinner you go on the edge, the more attention to detail is needed on heat treat. You need to pick the right steel, which brings us to the next thing. This is advertised as being made of a 1/4 inch thick D2 full tang.
Every MSK1 is fashioned from a single piece of 1/4 inch full tang steel that runs from piercing tip to rock crushing butt, making it one of the thickest and most durable blades you can buy.
Full tang has nothing to do with the metal it's made out of. That's how it's constructed. I thought that was ridiculous. But D2, being incredibly tough and having long edge holding, this knife was sharpish when I got it. It really wasn't bad, but I couldn't get it sharper, and nobody is going to get it sharper in the field. D2 is an absolutely difficult steel to sharpen, which is incredibly important because if this is your one tool option in a life or death scenario, and this is what you're relying on, and you can't get it sharp, it is worthless weight. D2 also requires this thick edge that makes it even harder to sharpen because comparative to almost any other knife steel on the market, it is the weakest knife steel. Huge carbides, natural stress fractures, literally the worst decision anybody could ever make on a knife steel. But I'm assuming that Freeman Outdoor Gear works with it often, and it still sells a lot. It sells easy to people who don't know any better, probably because of similar marketing from the 80s as the hollow-handled knife. The knife community as a whole is figuring this out. Everybody's moving away from D2. Everybody's realizing that the marketing is marketing. But it has to have this thick edge or these would be breaking left and right. I know 2 people that have this knife. One of them broke them already. He really uses knives. And so he's the one who really turned me on to this blade. But like I said, he broke it. It's literally the worst steel selection, period. And because the steel selection is so bad, you have to have a thicker edge. The other thing that you'll notice about this thick edge is it's hollow ground. So here's the problem. You have a $280 knife that raised $200,000 on Kickstarter, and it is a hollow ground knife made out of D2. That's kind of the stuff that horror stories are made out of, guys. And the reason that I have to do this video is because I'm a YouTuber. I'm trying to help people to make good decisions, like Dave is. And if you sacrifice that to make money, there's problems. I will do an honest review on anything on this channel that I'm motivated and passionate about, even if I lose 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 subscribers, if I were even to get to that point. Because if I'm not telling the truth, why would anybody watch my stuff? Bottom line is, this knife does a lot of things great. The hollow handle, 2 thumbs up, guys. Bow drill Divot, White River Knives does that in their Firecraft series. It's an awesome idea, and everybody should be jumping on that bandwagon. The jimping is comfortable. The shape, the feel in hand is comfortable. But the bottom line is, this is not a one-tool option. Having a knife that holds an edge for a long time but is difficult to sharpen makes it worthless as a survival knife. In fact, the opposite is a requirement. The weight distribution does nothing really for chopping. Crazy goat. Hollow grounds are absolutely unacceptable on a survival knife. The scales are too square for chopping, although they are nice for fine work. Guys, I literally feel convicted that I have to do this video because people are investing for what they believe, as advertised, is a tool that they will pass down to their children and grandchildren. If you pass this down to your grandchildren, if it doesn't break, which it's got this thick edge, so maybe it won't, they'll never be able to get it sharp, and it'll go into a dang junk drawer. We have to, as a survival and bushcraft community, come together, but we not only have to come together, we also have to hold each other accountable. Because if we support people taking advantage of our community, then our community has no cohesion and there is no standing up for each other. So, yeah, guys, first off, I'm going to put a link right here in the description, in the little bubble right here above on whatever side, of me torture testing the Hungless 2. It's a blade, it's a knife with an 8.5 inch blade that's 3/16 of an inch thick. Okay, so it's thinner than this. It has a higher flat grind with a thinner edge. And it was impossible to break without extreme mechanical advantage. I murdered the knife. In fact, the testing that I just showed you, the knife was already broken because I was using a 6-pound sledgehammer to split wood with it. And even after it was broken, it was still impossible to break without extreme mechanical leverage. And even with extreme mechanical leverage, it was still almost impossible to break. So the 1/4 inch thing, completely unnecessary. The making this one of the toughest, thickest survival knives on the market. No, 1/4 inch is standard. It's not the thickest. It's not even close to the thickest. It's not even the thickest production. It's not the thickest anything. It's certainly not the toughest anything. There's so many good things going for this knife. Don't overmarket it because you are fooling people into giving you money. You are lying to them and taking advantage of them and their trust of you. And yeah, it's the knife. It's a no-go. If you had a proper flat grind coming up on this blade, another 2 inches of blade length, and a decent steel, do 1095 with Rowan heat treat. 1080, 1080 plus, 1084, 1070 would be more appropriate. If you did that, this would be a great survival one-tool option knife. Ideally more like 3 extra inches or 4. But the problem is you would not be adhering to the market and taking people's money, because then all of a sudden it'd be, this knife's too big. Ugh. it could be the same weight and people would still complain about it more because everybody's looking for this middle of the road knife. Well, guess what? You get yourself a middle of the road knife and it's not going to chop for piss. Period. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I hope that you share this video, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I hope that you have a blessed day.
The ancient march, played by the United States Marine Pipe and the Drum Corps.